Hello, my dear friends. Your eyes flutter open, not to the golden glow of a sunrise, but to a soft, grey twilight filtered through a haze of floating dust motes dancing in the air. This isn't the romanticized past of travel documentaries. This is the 15th century Swahili coast, a world built quite literally from the bones of the sea. And you, my friend, are a part of its intricate, beautiful, and deeply uncomfortable fabric. The truth is, the very things that make this world magnificent are also what make it quietly, persistently dangerous. You probably wouldn't survive this for long. The constant, low-grade assault on your lungs would see to that. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, imagine yourself there. Feel the cool, slightly rough texture of the woven palm mat beneath you. Hear the distant, rhythmic crash of waves against the reef. Get cozy. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first sensation of your day isn't a thought, or a sound, or even the warmth of your wife sleeping beside you. It's a taste. A faint, yet unmistakable flavour on your tongue, as familiar as your own name. It's the taste of chalk, salt, and earth all rolled into one. It's the taste of your home. It's the taste of coral dust. You roll your tongue around your mouth, trying to gather the fine grit that has settled there overnight, a silent deposit from the very air you breathe. You swallow, and it goes down with a faint, scratchy resistance. This is how every day begins. History books and grand paintings love to show us the glamorous illusion of your city. They call it a jewel of the Indian Ocean, a city of stone, shimmering white under the fierce equatorial sun. They depict magnificent mosques with towering minarets and the grand, multi-story homes of wealthy merchants, their arched doorways and intricate, wooden balconies a testament to a flourishing trade that connects this African coast to Arabia, Persia, and even distant China. From a dhow sailing into the harbour, your city looks like a dream, a promise of wealth and civilization carved out of the mangrove-lined shore. It seems solid, permanent, pristine, a fortress of culture and commerce. But you live inside the illusion. And the shocking reality is that this beautiful stone is nothing of the sort. It's coral rag, cut in great blocks from the nearby reef. And coral is not granite. It's the skeleton of a million tiny sea creatures, porous and soft. It lives, it breathes, and it sheds. Constantly. The pristine white city is a beautiful lie. Your world is a world of perpetual, inescapable dust. This isn't the soft, harmless dust of a neglected bookshelf. It's a fine, abrasive powder of limestone and aragonite. It coats every surface. You can draw a line with your finger on the wooden chest at the foot of your sleeping mat, revealing the darker wood beneath a pale grey film that has settled in just a few hours of stillness. It clings to the woven tapestries on the walls, dulling their vibrant colours. It gets into the water pot, into the oil for the lamps, into the very fibres of your clothes. You sit up, your joints protesting with a quiet ache. The air in your small, windowless sleeping chamber is thick and close, heavy with the scent of slept-in bodies, stale cooking smoke from last night's meal, and that ever-present, chalky smell of the walls themselves. You can see the dust motes swirling in the single, weak shaft of pre-dawn light that filters in from the main room. It looks almost beautiful, a magical, sparkling nebula in the gloom. But you know better. You know that every glittering speck is a tiny razor, a microscopic shard of the very house that shelters you, now finding its way into your lungs. You clear your throat, a dry, rasping sound that is echoed by a similar cough from your wife, still stirring in her sleep. It's a common sound in this city, the coral cough. So why? Why build an entire civilization out of something so problematic? The answer, like most things in history, is a mixture of practicality, pride, and a lack of better options. Look around your world. The mangrove swamps provide little in the way of building material. The good, strong timber, the mvul and the ebony, is far too valuable. It's for ships, for the magnificent carved doors that announce a family's status to the world, for export. To build a common house from it would be like a modern person building their garage out of solid mahogany. It's unthinkable. The earth here is sandy, ill-suited for the kind of durable mud brick structures found further inland. But the reef is endless. It is a quarry that replenishes itself, provided by the sea. Cutting the coral rag into blocks is hard, sweaty work, but it is achievable. And once mortared together, with lime itself, made by burning the very same coral, it creates structures that can rise 2, 3, even 4 stories high. They are cool, a refuge from the blistering sun. And most importantly, they look permanent. They look powerful. A Swahili city made of coral is a statement. It tells every trader who sails into port that this is not some temporary camp. This is a place of substance, of wealth passed down through generations. The grit, the dust, the cough, that is simply the price of ambition. It's the hidden tax for living in a city that dares to defy the ephemeral nature of the coast. You swing your legs off the mat, your feet landing on a floor that feels silken with a fine layer of this ever-present powder. The first pangs of hunger begin to stir in your belly, a familiar gnawing that signals the true start of the day. And you know, with a certainty born of a lifetime of experience, that even the food you are about to eat will not be entirely free of the taste of your world. You move from the sleeping chamber into the heart of your home, a larger room that serves as kitchen, living space, and dining hall all in one. The air here is warmer, carrying the scent of a small, smoky fire. Your wife, Amina, is already there, her back to you as she kneels before a small charcoal brazier. The soft, rhythmic sound of her stirring is a familiar morning song. She is a silhouette against the fire's glow, her form patient and focused. This small, domestic scene is the anchor of your life, a quiet ritual that holds the chaos of the world at bay. It's a scene that, if painted by a visiting European, might be filled with glamour. They would imagine a breakfast of mangoes, papayas, and jackfruit, bursting with tropical sweetness. They'd paint in heaps of exotic spices bought from the market, cloves, cinnamon, and pepper piled high in ornate bowls, testament to the wealth of this trading hub. The illusion is one of effortless abundance, a family partaking in the fragrant bounty of Africa and the East. But the pot Amina stirs contains no such fantasy. The shocking reality is the breakfast of the common man, a thick, greyish porridge of millet called uji. And its primary, inescapable ingredient, the one that no amount of spice can ever truly mask, is the very dust you tasted upon waking. You watch as Amina takes a wooden spoon and scrapes the last of the porridge from the clay pot into 3 simple wooden bowls. She does it with an economy of motion that speaks of 1,000 such mornings. Even in this simple act, the dust is an enemy. It has settled on the grinding stone where she milled the grain yesterday, ensuring tiny particles were worked directly into the flour. It has settled into the coarse weave of the sack the millet is stored in. It has settled on her hands as she mixed the flour with water, despite her having washed them moments before. The battle against the grit is a war you can never win, only fight to a daily stalemate. You take your bowl from her, your fingers brushing hers, in a brief, familiar touch. Your 2 children, a boy of 8 and a girl of 5, emerge sleepy-eyed from the other sleeping alcove and take their own bowls, settling on the floor mats without a word. The family breakfast is a quiet affair. You dip your fingers, no spoons, for a meal like this into the warm, thick uji. The first mouthful is always the most difficult. You bring it to your lips, and the texture is immediate. It's mostly soft and yielding, but beneath that is the distinct, unavoidable friction of fine grit. It's not like biting into a stone. It's more subtle, a fine, sandy quality that grates almost imperceptibly against your teeth. You can hear it, a faint, internal scraping sound that only you can perceive. You chew slowly, deliberately, your jaw working to separate the nourishment from the contaminant. So why, in this land of supposed plenty, is this gritty struggle your daily bread? The why is a lesson in economics and environment. The fantastic fruits and spices that create the glamorous illusion, they are cash crops. They are for the wealthy merchants, for the sultan's table, for export on the very doughs that are your city's lifeline. For you, an artisan, a woodcarver, such daily luxury is an impossible dream. Millet, on the other hand, is survival. It's hardy, it grows in the less fertile soil away from the coast, and most importantly, it can be stored for long periods, a bulwark against the unpredictable seasons. It is the fuel for the city's working hands. The grit is simply a consequence of your magnificent, and terribly flawed, architecture. To live in a prestigious coral stone house is to accept its dusty fallout. The only way to have a grit-free meal would be to live in a simple mud and thatch hut far from the city centre, a mark of lower status. In a strange way, the very dust in your food is a sign that you are a man of some standing, a resident of the city proper, not an outsider. You are, quite literally, eating your status. Here is where Amina's quiet genius lies. Her skill is not in avoiding the unavoidable, but in making it bearable. You notice she has stirred in a generous amount of coconut milk, lending a creamy richness to the porridge that helps coat the tongue and throat, easing the passage of the grit. She has mashed a ripe banana into it as well, its natural sweetness a welcome counterpoint to the blandness of the millet. And as you take another mouthful, you detect the faint, warm perfume of cardamom. Just a tiny pinch from the small, precious stash she keeps hidden away, but it's enough. It's a spark of flavour that distracts the senses, a little act of culinary magic that says, this is more than just fuel. This is our meal. I have made it with care. You look at your son, who is eating with a practiced slowness, already accustomed to the texture. Your daughter, younger and less patient, makes a small face, and Amina reaches over to gently guide her hand, showing her how to scoop from the side of the bowl. It is a moment of simple, profound love. This gritty porridge is not a symbol of hardship, not entirely. It is a testament to your family's resilience, and to your wife's daily, quiet defiance of the world you inhabit. You finish your bowl, scraping the last of the UG from the wood with your finger. The taste of millet, coconut, banana, and the faint, chalky aftertaste of coral lingers in your mouth. The meal is over. It has filled your belly and given you the energy you will need for the day ahead. It is time to go to work. It is time to leave the relative sanctuary of your home and enter the place where the dust is born, the place where you will spend hours breathing it in, creating beauty from the very same material that subtly grinds away at your life with every meal. You give Amina a brief nod, a silent acknowledgement of the meal and the care it contained. Stepping out of the relative cool of your home is like stepping into a furnace. The sun is already climbing, its heat radiating back from the white coral walls of the narrow street, creating an intense, boxed-in warmth. The ubiquitous dust is already on the move, stirred by the morning's growing activity, the shuffling feet of your neighbours, the occasional passing donkey laden with water pots. The powder clings to your ankles and the hem of your kikoi, a fine grey shroud you acquire within moments of being outside. Your workshop is not far, just a few winding alleys away, in a part of the city where the sounds of industry begin to replace the quieter hum of domestic life. To many, your profession is one of high romance. You are a fundi, a master craftsman, a woodcarver. In a city that announces its wealth through intricately carved doors, shutters and chests, you are a purveyor of status, an artist whose work transforms a simple house into a statement of power and piety. The glamorous illusion is that of a serene creator, tucked away in a fragrant studio, surrounded by this sweet, spicy scents of rare woods. People imagine you contemplating a block of dark ebony, or rich reddish anvil, seeing the hidden patterns within, before liberating them with a few masterful strokes of a chisel. They see the finished product, a door frame covered in flowing Arabic calligraphy and delicate floral pattern sand. They see magic. They see the soul of the Swahili coast made manifest in wood. You reach the heavy, plain wooden door of your workshop and pull it open. The shocking reality hits you immediately, a wave of air even thicker and more complexly scented than in your home. It's a small, windowless room, much like your sleeping chamber, with a single opening to the street that you now stand in. Light struggles to penetrate the gloom, illuminating a dense galaxy of floating particles. But this is not just the familiar coral dust. Here, it mixes and melds with a new element, the dust of your trade. The air is heavy with the sharp, resinous perfume of carved wood, the metallic tang of your tools, and the ever-present chalky bass note of the city. The illusion of a serene studio dissolves into the truth of a cramped, dusty, and deeply unhealthy workspace. Today, you are working on a lintel, the heavy wooden beam that will sit above a new door for a wealthy pearl merchant. The wood is teak, brought all the way from India on a dhow, and its cost is more than you might make in 2 months. Its scent is oily and rich. You run your hand over the uncarved section. It's smooth, dense, and full of promise. Then, you look at the section you were working on yesterday. An intricate pattern of vines and geometric shapes is emerging, precise and beautiful. But both the wood and the floor around it are covered in a fine, brownish powder. This is the truth of your art. It is not a clean magic. It is a process of violent subtraction, of scraping and cutting and filing, and every action releases a cloud of tiny, airborne fibres. You pick up a small, sharp chisel and a wooden mallet. You lean over the lintel, your body braced, and begin to work. Tap, sap, sap. With each gentle impact, a small curl of wood peels away. But that's not all. A puff of near-invisible dust rises, catching the light, and you breathe it in. You can't help it. There are no masks, no ventilation systems. The very idea would be absurd. You work for a few minutes, absorbed in the delicate task of undercutting a leaf, then switch to a fine-toothed rasp to smooth a curve. The rasping sound is accompanied by a much thicker cloud of dust. It settles on your forearms, already slick with sweat, creating a gritty paste. It gets in your hair, your beard, your eyebrows. You pause to wipe your brow with the back of your hand, and it comes away smeared with a muddy mixture of sweat and the dusts of coral and teak. And here is the insidious why of it all. You don't think of this as poison. It is simply work. A man gets dirty at his work. A baker is covered in flour, a mason in lime, and you, a carver, are covered in wood. The persistent cough that you, and most other fundists you know, develop over the years. It's just a carver's cough, a sign of a long and productive career. The idea that these tiny, fragrant particles of wood are accumulating deep in your lungs, slowly scouring them, turning them hard and brittle, is a piece of knowledge that does not exist in your world. The danger is invisible, abstract, and decades away. The reward, however, is immediate and profound. The lintel growing under your hands is your legacy. It is a prayer made solid. It is beauty that will last for 100 years or more, long after the pearl merchant and his sons are gone. Your name won't be on it, not openly, but the other carvers will know your style. They will see the way you shape a lotus bud, or curve a vine and say, that is the work of Jafari. In a society built on reputation and lineage, that is a form of immortality. You are willing to trade breath for it, without even knowing the terms of the deal. You lean back, your shoulders aching. The detail work is straining your eyes in the dim light. The fine dust has a taste now, oily and slightly bitter on the back of your tongue, a stark contrast to the chalky taste of the morning's porridge. You have created a thing of undeniable beauty, but the process has coated you, inside and out, with grit. You look at your tools, noticing the edge on your finest chisel has begun to dull. To continue with the level of precision this piece demands, you will need to sharpen it. Your best sharpening stone cracked last week, and you have been making do with a lesser one. It won't do for this commission. You will have to go to the market. It is time to step out of this private, dusty world and into the much larger, much louder, and even more complicated world of the city's central bazaar. Leaving the relative solitude of your workshop, you step back into the sun-baked artery of the street. The walk to the market, this Soko, is a journey through a sensory landscape that grows more intense with every step. The narrow alleys, designed to create shade, also act as funnels for sound and smell. The gentle tapping from your workshop is replaced by the rhythmic clang of a coppersmith hammering a tray, the shouts of children chasing a stray goat, and the murmur of women gossiping in a shaded doorway. The simple, two-note aroma of your workshop coral and wood is now overwhelmed by a complex symphony of scents. As you approach the Soko, the glamorous illusion of the exotic marketplace begins to take shape, just as it's so often described by foreign traders and romantic storytellers. They speak of a treasure trove for the senses. They imagine the air thick with the sweet, heady perfumes of frankincense and myrrh, displayed in gleaming brass bowls. They picture pyramids of vibrant spicy saffron from Persia, cloves from Zanzibar, cinnamon from Ceylon, their kalauas and fragrances mingling to create an intoxicating aroma of global trade. They see merchants in fine silk robes, haggling over gleaming pearls, and porters carrying bolts of brightly coloured cloth from India. It's a vision of clean, perfumed opulence, the vibrant heart of a wealthy commercial empire. You turn a corner, and the shocking reality hits you like a physical blow. The first thing that truly announces the market is not the sight, but the smell. And it is not the perfume of spice. It is the deep, gut-wrenching stench of rot. The Soko is a living, breathing, and decaying organism. The beautiful illusion is a tiny, curated corner of a much larger, messier truth. Your nose is immediately assaulted by a dozen competing odors. There is the powerful, ammonia-sharp smell of drying fish, laid out on mats under the relentless sun, their silver skins crawling with buzzing flies. A few stalls down, there's the coppery, metallic scent of a butcher hacking apart a goat, the blood pooling in the dusty ground and attracting its own swarm of insects. Mixed with this is the sweet, cloying smell of overripe mangoes and bruised bananas, their sugars fermenting in the heat. And underpinning it all is the sour, pungent odor of unwashed bodies, animal dung and garbage, a mixture of vegetable peelings and fish guts tossed into a nearby alley, slowly cooking in the sun. You pull the edge of your kofia, your small embroidered cap, down a little further, as if it could somehow shield you from the olfactory assault. You navigate through the throng, your senses on high alert. This is the truth of a marketplace before refrigeration, before sanitation departments, before packaged goods. It's a place of vibrant life and immediate decay, and the two are inseparable. You have to pass the man selling live chickens, crammed together in a wooden cage, their droppings adding a sharp, foul note to the air. You sidestep a puddle of something slimy and unidentifiable. The coral dust here is different, too. It's no longer this clean, chalky powder of your home. Here, it's a brown, sticky grime, mixed with spilled food, animal waste, and 1,000 other things. It coats the cobblestones, the stalls, the very air you breathe. So why is this assault on the senses not just tolerated, but the very center of city life? The why lies in a worldview that simply doesn't separate the pristine from the putrid. The concept of hygiene, as a modern person understands it, does not exist. The connection between germs and disease is unknown. Miasma theory, the idea that bad smells themselves cause illness, is the prevailing wisdom, but even that is a vague and inconsistent notion. The stench of the market is not seen as a sign of danger, but as a sign of life. Rot is the other side of ripeness. The smell of blood is the sign of fresh meat. The flies are just a part of the world, like the geckos on your walls or the crabs on the shore. This is a world that is intensely, unavoidably organic. Life is messy. The market is the atom of that messiness, and that messiness means abundance. The sterile, odorless market would be a poor market, a sign of famine, not fortune. The overwhelming stench is, in its own way, the smell of prosperity. You finally spot the man you are looking for, a trader from the mainland who deals in stone and minerals. His stall is a small island of calm in the chaos. Here's pieces of obsidian from the Great Rift Valley, soapstone from the hills, and, most importantly, a selection of hard, flat stones perfect for sharpening tools. As you haggle with him, your voice low and practiced, you are keenly aware of the world swirling around you. You hear the high-pitched banter of women arguing over the price of coconuts. You smell the sudden, delightful scent of mahamri, a sweet, cardamom-spiced bread, as a nearby vendor pulls a fresh batch from a pot of hot oil. That single, beautiful smell momentarily cuts through the surrounding rot, a reminder of the market's promise. It's this constant juxtaposition, this dance between the delightful and the disgusting, that defines the Soko. The perfume and the rot are not opposites, they are neighbors. You know that the woman frying that sweet bread is likely using oil from a pot that is also coated in the market's sticky grime, and that the cardamom was stored in a sack that sat next to a pile of dried fish. You just learn to ignore it. You focus on the prize. After a satisfactory negotiation, you exchange a few small cowrie shells for a fine-grained, grey sharpening stone. It is cool and heavy in your hand, a piece of solid, reliable reality amidst the chaotic swirl of the market. Holding it is a comfort. You wrap it carefully in a scrap of cloth and tuck it into the sash of your kikoi. Your mission is complete. Now you only have to navigate your way back out, back through the smells and the sounds and the grime to the quiet dust of your workshop, where you can use this simple stone to create a sliver of perfect, ordered beauty. You retrace your steps, leaving the clamour of the Soko behind. The oppressive wall of sound and smell recedes with each alley you navigate, replaced by the more familiar, almost comforting, urban symphony of your own neighbourhood. The new sharpening stone is a satisfying weight against your hip. But the market's sensory residue lingers, a faint phantom of dried fish and overripe fruit in your nostrils, a stickiness on your skin. You feel a need to cleanse yourself, not just your body, but your spirit. It is nearly time for midday prayers, and the great mosque, the Mzikiti where Ejuma, is close. Its presence is felt long before it is seen. The mosque is the heart of your city's identity, its spiritual and architectural anchor. The glamorous illusion of this sacred space is one of absolute purity and peace. In stories and paintings, it is depicted as a celestial vision of white. Its walls, made of the same coral rag as your home, are shown as brilliant, unblemished surfaces, meticulously plastered and whitewashed until they gleam like polished marble in the sun. The minaret soars into the blue sky, a perfect, clean finger pointing towards God. Inside, one imagines cool, silent halls, floors covered with priceless Persian rugs, and the air scented with a touch of incense, a holy quietude where the soul can find untroubled communion with the divine. It is presented as a sanctuary, a perfect refuge from the gritty, messy world outside its walls. You reach the arched entranceway. Outside, there is a large stone cistern for ablutions, the ritual washing before prayer. You join a small line of men, your neighbours and fellow craftsmen. And here, the shocking reality begins to seep in. The water in the cistern is murky, a pale, cloudy green. A fine layer of grey sludge coats the bottom. As you cut the water in your hands to wash your face, you feel it, the familiar, fine grit of coral dust, suspended in the water itself. You wash your hands, your arms, to the elbows, your feet. The ritual is meant to purify, but you are, in essence, just replacing the sticky, organic grime of the market with the cleaner mineral grit of the city's infrastructure. The act is symbolic, you know, but the physical reality is inescapable. You step through the grand, carved teak doorway, a work of art you have often admired, noting the masterful skill in its deep reliefs, and into the main prayer hall. The illusion of pristine silence is immediately shattered. The hall is indeed vast and cool, a welcome respite from the heat, but it is not silent. The high, timbered ceiling echoes with the rustle of men finding their places, the soft shuffling of bare feet on woven mats, and a chorus of low, persistent coughs. It's the same choral cough you hear in your home, but magnified here, a congregation of lungs quietly protesting the very air of the city. You look at the magnificent walls, and you see what the paintings leave out. They are not perfect. Streaks or water damage from the last rainy season stain the whitewash in pale yellow maps. In the corners, the plaster is flaking, revealing the rough, porous coral stone beneath, and the walls are shedding. The fine, almost invisible shower of white dust drifts down, catching the light from the arched windows, a constant, silent snowfall that coats everything. The beautiful woven mats on the floor, while clean of street dirt, are saturated with this fine white powder. When you kneel, a small puff of dust rises, a tiny prayer of its own. So why this disconnect? Why is the house of God, the symbol of purity, so imperfect? The why is a profound lesson in the Swahili understanding of faith, work, and the nature of the world. The mosque is not a sealed-off relic. It is a living part of the city, built of the same substance, breathing the same air. To keep it in the state of pristine perfection seen in the illusion would require a constant, frantic war against entropy. It would mean an army of labourers plastering, painting, and dusting every single day. Such a focus on the physical perfection of the building would be seen as a form of vanity, a distraction from the true purpose of the space. The goal is not a perfect building, but a perfect submission to God. The focus is on the ritual, the prayer, the community gathered within its walls, not on the walls themselves. The dust, the flaking plaster, the stains, these are signs that the building is used, that it is loved, that it is real. A perfect mosque would be an unused one. The community's duty is to maintain it, to keep it from falling into ruin, but not to obsess over an impossible, sterile ideal. The grit in the ablution water and the dust in the air are simply part of God's world, and you find God amidst the imperfection, not by escaping it. You find your place in one of the long rows of men, your body shoulder to shoulder with a fisherman on one side and a wealthy merchant in a fine linen kanzu on the other. Here, in this dusty hall, you are all equal. As the imam's voice begins the call to prayer, a rich, resonant sound that fills the vast space, a sense of peace does descend. It's not the sterile peace of the illusion, but a more resilient, hard-won peace. You bow, your forehead touching the dusty mat, and for a few moments, the worries of your commission, the grit in your food, the noise of the market, all fade away. You are connected to something larger than yourself. The dust on your forehead feels like a blessing, a mark of your belonging to this place, this faith, this community. When the prayer is over, you rise, feeling lighter, your spirit settled. But as you walk back out into the sun, you can feel the familiar grit between your toes, a grounding reminder that your respite is over. The work of the day is only half done, and back in your home, Amina is engaged in her own, much longer battle against the very same dust you just prayed in. You arrive back at your home, the midday, sun now at its fiercest, beating down on the city with a white-hot intensity. The narrow street offers slivers of shade, but the heat is a physical presence. You push open your door, expecting to find the cool, dim interior a sanctuary. And it is cooler, but it is far from serene. You find your wife, Amina, in the middle of a familiar, and ultimately futile, battle. This is her domain, the stage for her own form of artistry and labour. The glamorous illusion of a Swahili home, particularly the domain of the woman, is one of quiet, elegant domesticity. It's a vision of cool, shaded courtyards, perhaps with a small, gurgling fountain. One imagines women reclining on plush cushions, weaving or supervising servants as they prepare fragrant meals. The home is seen as a zinana, a protected, private space, shielded from the dirt and toil of the outside world. It is supposed to be a pristine jewel box, a testament to the husband's success and the wife's refined management. It's a world of grace, beauty, and effortless order. The shocking reality confronting you is a scene of chaotic, strenuous warfare. Amina is not reclining. She is armed. In her hand is a broom made from bound palm fronds, and she is sweeping the floor with short, aggressive strokes. Her face, usually so composed, is set in a look of grim determination, a sheen of sweat on her brow. And the enemy she is fighting is the one you know so well, the coral dust. She isn't just tidying up, she is trying to physically eject an invading force. The problem is, her weapon is also her enemy's greatest ally. The rough fronds of the broom are effective at gathering the larger debris, a dropped bit of dried fruit, a stray leaf blown in from outside, but they send the finest, lightest particles of coral dust swirling back up into the air. She is not so much removing the dust as she is temporarily relocating it from the floor to the air, from which it will soon settle back down onto every single surface once more. Watch her for a moment. She finishes sweeping and moves on to the next phase of her attack. She takes a damp cloth and begins wiping down the large wooden chest where you store your textiles. She wipes a section, and the dark wood shines through, rich and clean. But by the time she has wiped her way to the other end of the chest, you can already see a fresh, faint film of grey beginning to settle on the spot where she started. It is a soul-crushing, Sisyphean task. This is the great, unspoken labour of the women of this city. While the men build the city from coral, the women spend their lives fighting its slow, steady disintegration. Every day is a new campaign in a war that can never, ever be won. The pristine jewel box is a fantasy. The home here is a sandcastle, constantly crumbling, demanding endless, thankless reconstruction. So why this endless, futile struggle? The why is rooted in the powerful social codes of honour, shame, and wifely duty. A woman's worth, her reputation, and by extension, her husband's honour, is judged by the state of her home. While you, as a man, are judged by the quality of the door you carve, she is judged by the cleanliness of the floor behind it. The presence of dirt, of disorder, is seen not as a consequence of living in a shedding coral house, but as a sign of a lazy or incompetent wife. The visiting female relatives, the neighbours who drop by to share gossip, they are the judges. Their eyes miss nothing. They will notice the thickness of the dust on the water pot, the grit on the sleeping mats. The thick layer of dust is a layer of shame. And so Amina fights. She fights not because she believes she can win, but because she must be seen fighting. Her constant, exhausting labour is a performance of competence, a daily declaration that she is a good wife, a worthy manager of your household. The futility of the task is irrelevant. The effort is everything. You see the toll it takes. Her knuckles are dry and cracked from this constant wringing of damp cloths. There's a permanent furrow in her brow that is not from anger, but from sheer, unending concentration. You know that later she will take the sleeping mats outside and beat them, creating huge clouds of grey dust, a process that will fill her own lungs with the very grit she is trying to remove from your beds. Remember the fine, gritty taste of the morning UG. That grit is her constant companion, far more than it is yours. She lives and breathes it, all day, every day. She is the keeper of the house, and the house is trying to consume her. You step forward and take the damp cloth from her hand. She looks up, startled, then gives you a small, tired smile. It's a breach of custom for a man to involve himself in such domestic work, but in the privacy of your own home, these rules can bend. You say nothing, but simply start wiping the surface of a small table yourself. It's a small gesture, an acknowledgement of her struggle, a brief moment of shared duty. She watches you for a second, then goes to fetch the water pot, preparing for the afternoon's needs. The war is not over. The dust is already settling again. But for a moment, the battle lines have shifted. As you wipe, you notice your children are not underfoot. They are old enough now to be allowed outside to play. And you feel a familiar, low-level anxiety stir within you, knowing that the very streets and buildings that form their playground are a landscape of hidden dangers. The brief, shared moment of domestic work passes. Amina is now busy with the water pots, ensuring they are as free of sediment as possible before she begins to think about the evening meal. The house falls into a rhythm of quiet, purposeful activity. The silence is punctuated by the absence of your children. You step to the doorway, leaning against the intricately carved from not one of your own, but a piece made a generation ago, its patterns a familiar comfort. You peer out into the narrow, sun-drenched lane, searching for a sign of your son, Juma, and your daughter, Aisha. The glamorous illusion of childhood in this tropical paradise is a potent one. It's a vision straight from a storybook, laughing, carefree children with sun-kissed skin, running freely through whitewashed streets. One imagines them playing games with seashells on a pristine beach, climbing coconut palms, or listening, wide-eyed, to sailors' tales of faraway lands. It's a picture of natural, unfettered joy, a childhood lived in harmony with a beautiful and benevolent environment. Their world seems like a giant, sun-filled playground, safe and full of wonder. You spot them at the far end of the alley, and the shocking reality of their existence sends a familiar, sharp pang of anxiety through your chest. They are not on a beach, they are playing in the dusty street, just a few feet away from a slow-moving donkey laden with heavy coral blocks for a new construction site. Their chosen playground is a half-finished wall of a neighbour's house, a chaotic jumble of loose coral rag and drying mortar. Your son, Juma, is attempting to climb it, his small hands and bare feet finding precarious holds on the rough, abrasive stone. Aisha is below, gathering fallen chips of coral into a little pile, her treasure. Your heart seizes for a moment as Juma's foot slips. He scrambles, sending a shower of coral dust and small, sharp fragments down onto his sister. He laughs, triumphant as he finds a more secure footing. She squeals, not in pain, but in delight at the rain. This is their playground. Not a place of curated safety, but a world of constant, low-grade peril. Every surface is a potential weapon. The coral stone they climb is not smooth, it's covered in sharp edges and fossilized shells that can inflict a nasty, deep gash with a single slip. A fall from even a modest height onto the hard-packed earth could easily mean a broken bone. And then there's the dust. You watch as Aisha picks up a particularly interesting piece of coral and, in a moment of childlike curiosity, puts it to her mouth to taste it, just as she sees you and Amina taste your food. You shout her name, a sharper sound than you intended. She startles, dropping the stone. The danger is not just in the potential for injury, but in the insidious, ever-present grit. Their small, developing lungs are breathing in the same abrasive powder as yours, but they are breathing it more deeply as they run and shout and play. The water they might sneak a drink of from a public cistern is filled with it. The dirt they play in is composed of it. Their childhood is a baptism of grit. So why, in a world where children are cherished, are they allowed to play in such a hazardous environment? The why is a complex tapestry of cultural norms, a different understanding of risk, and simple necessity. The modern concept of child-proofing a world is utterly alien. The world is as it is full of sharp corners, unstable walls, and questionable water. A child's job is not to be shielded from it, but to learn to navigate it. A scraped knee from falling off a coral wall is not a failure of parental supervision, but a lesson in climbing more carefully next time. It is, in a brutal way, a practical education in survival. Furthermore, there are no other options. There are no public parks, No designated play areas. The city itself is the playground. And as for parental supervision, Amina is engaged in the endless, essential work of maintaining the household. You are engaged in the work that feeds the family. To have one parent dedicate their entire day to simply watching the children would be an unimaginable luxury, a path to starvation. Children are part of the community's fabric, and their supervision is a loose, collective responsibility. The neighbor mending his fishing net might shout a warning, the woman selling bread might shoo them away from her hot oil, but their safety is ultimately in their own hands, and in the hands of fate. You watch as Juma, having reached the pinnacle of his mountain, a height of maybe 5 feet, looks over at the Sultan's palace, its highest levels visible above the surrounding rooftops. He points, shouting something to his sister that you can't hear. The palace, to him, is a place of fantasy, a castle from a story. From this distance, its walls look perfectly smooth, impossibly white, a different substance entirely from the crumbling wall he is perched upon. He sees the glamorous illusion. But you know better. You know that even the Sultan, in his opulent residence, cannot fully escape the fundamental, gritty reality of the city. His world may be grander, but it is built from the very same dust that your daughter is now trying to brush from her dress, a task you know is utterly hopeless. Your gaze follows your son's pointing finger across the jumble of rooftops towards the distant, imposing structure of the Sultan's palace. It dominates the city's skyline, a symbol of power and divine authority that is visible from almost any vantage point. It is the political and social sun around which your entire world orbits. To an outsider, and even to a child like your son, it appears as a place of pure, unadulterated fantasy. The glamorous illusion of the Sultan's palace is one of supreme, untouchable opulence. It's the image perpetuated in epic poems and traders' exaggerated tales. One imagines vast, airy chambers with ceilings high as the sky, cooled by gentle sea breezes flowing through huge, arched windows. The floors, surely, are polished marble, covered with silk carpets from China. The air within is heavy with the scent of burning bekor, a rare and costly incense. Servants in spotless white robes move silently, carrying trays of jewel-like fruits and cool sherbet in silver goblets. The Sultan himself, a figure of immense power and wealth, is envisioned reclining on cushions of velvet, dressed in cloth of gold, his every whim hated for. His world is seen as hermetically sealed, a perfect bubble of luxury, utterly removed from the grit and sweat of the city he rules. But you, as a craftsman who has, on one occasion, been summoned to repair a broken screen within its walls, you know the shocking reality. The palace is not a bubble, it's a cage. A gilded, magnificent, and very dusty cage. Its walls are built from the same coral rag as your own small house. They are thicker, the blocks are more precisely cut, and the decorative plasterwork is far more elaborate, but it is the same fundamental material. And it sheds. The biggest difference is the scale. 100 times more wall means 100 times more dust. While Amina fights a daily battle in your 2 rooms, the palace employs an army of servants whose entire existence is a relentless, 24-hour-a-day war against the pervasive coral grit. You remember walking through a lesser corridor and seeing a line of young women with soft cloths, their sole task to wipe down the walls, only to have to start again at the beginning as soon as they had finished. The vast, airy chambers are indeed vast, but this makes them impossible to keep clean. The sea breeze, so romantic in theory, is a delivery system for salt and fine, abrasive sand, which mixes with the ever-present coral dust to form a uniquely destructive powder that dulls the finish on the most expensive imported furniture. The beautiful silk carpets, they are reservoirs of grit. You saw servants beating them in a courtyard, and the clouds of dust that rose were so thick they momentarily obscured the sun. And the Sultan himself. You caught a glimpse of him passing. He was an old man, and you heard it, the familiar, dry, hacking cough. The Sultan's cough. Deeper, more resonant perhaps, from a lifetime of richer food, but unmistakable. He lives in the grandest house in the city, and so he breathes in the grandest quantity of its dust. So why this great paradox? Why would the most powerful man in the land build his seat of power from the same flawed material as the humblest home? The why is a powerful statement of identity and solidarity, albeit a symbolic one. For the Sultan to build his palace from, say, imported granite or marble would be to declare himself foreign, an occupier. His legitimacy, his right to rule, is tied to his Swahili identity. He is the first among the Swahili people, not apart from them. Therefore, he must live in a Swahili house. The palace is the ultimate expression of Swahili architecture, the grandest coral block house of them all. Its construction from the local material is a physical manifestation of his connection to the land and his people. He rules the city of coral, so he must live in coral. The relentless dust, the constant battle for cleanliness, the Sultan's court, these are the prices he pays for that legitimacy. His opulence is a performance of power, but his shared environmental struggles, hidden behind the palace walls, are the foundation of his authority. You remember the fine, sugary sweets you were given as part of your payment for the repair. Even they, resting on a silver tray, had a faint, almost imperceptible grittiness to them. The servants had likely fought to keep the sugar bowl covered, to whisk it from storage to tray with minimal exposure, but the air itself is the contaminant. There is no escape. The Sultan, for all his power, eats the same dust as you do. His is just sweetened with sugar from Persia and served on a silver platter. He can afford more spices to mask the taste, but the taste is still there on the back of his tongue, a constant, chalky reminder of the foundations of his kingdom. Juma has scrambled down from his perch now, his game forgotten. He and Aisha are chasing a lizard into a patch of overgrown grass near the base of the wall. The brief moment of anxiety passes, replaced by the mundane rhythm of the afternoon. But the image of the palace lingers in your mind. It's a comforting thought. In a strange way. The great social distance between you and your ruler is immense, a chasm of wealth and status. That the dust is the great equalizer. It falls on the master and the servant, the artisan and the sultan. And you know that even a simple cut, a scrape from the coral walls of that palace, can bring a man low, regardless of his station, and send him seeking help from a healer whose remedies are often a gamble of their own. The thought of a coral cut lingers unpleasantly in your mind. It's a common injury in a city where every wall is an abrasive surface. Just last month, your own son Juma slipped while chasing a cat and opened a deep, ugly gash on his calf. The wound bled freely and, more worryingly, was packed with the fine, grey-white dust of the wall that had bitten him. Your stomach still clenches at the memory of his cries and the sight of the dirt embedded in his flesh. In such moments, there is only one course of action, a visit to these Mganga, the local healer. The glamorous illusion of healing in this part of the world is often one of profound, mystical wisdom. Storytellers and foreign travellers speak of healers with ancient knowledge, men and women who understand the secret properties of every leaf, root and flower. They are depicted as serene figures, living in harmony with nature, dispensing gentle, effective cures derived from a deep, almost magical connection to the earth. Their huts are imagined to be filled with the clean, aromatic scents of drying herbs, their remedies pure, organic and powerful. They are the keepers of a sacred, natural pharmacy. Your own experience with Juma's leg paints a far more shocking and desperate reality. The Mganga you visited was not a serene mystic in a fragrant hut. He was an old, half-blind man operating out of a small, dark room at the back of his own dusty coral home. The air inside was thick and suffocating, a cloying mixture of stale wood smoke, unidentifiable boiling, concoctions, and the sharp, coppery smell of old blood. Instead of neat bundles of herbs, the room was a chaotic mess of dirty gourds, cracked pots, and dried animal parts of dubious origin hanging from the ceiling, a desiccated lizard here, a string of bird skulls there. The Mganga's hands were stained with a dozen different substances, and his fingernails were black with grime. He examined Juma's leg with a grunt. He did not wash the wound. Instead, he took a pinch of a fine, dark powder from a greasy leather pouch and rubbed it directly into the open gash. Juma screamed, a sound that tore at your heart. Then, the Mganga produced a poultice. It was a foul-smelling, dark green paste, held in a dirty clamshell. He smeared this concoction over the wound and the powder, then took a piece of cloth, a strip torn from what looked like an old, unwashed kikoi, and bound the leg tightly. His remedy for a wound already contaminated with coral dust was to pack it with more dirt, mystery powders, and a filthy bandage. The entire process was a modern physician's nightmare, a direct introduction of countless new bacteria into an already compromised wound. So why would any sane person submit their child to such a horrifying procedure? The why is a stark window into a world without germ theory, where healing is a battle of spiritual forces, not a matter of sterile procedure. The Mganga's worldview is not based on microbes, it's based on balance and power. The coral wall that cut your son has its own spirit, its own power, which has now entered his body and caused the injury. The healer's job is to counteract that malevolent force with a more powerful one. The dark powder might be ground charcoal, believed to draw out impurities, mixed with a sacred, protective herb. The foul-smelling poultice is not judged by its sterility, but by the potency of its ingredients, some of which might indeed have antibacterial properties, a fact discovered through generations of trial and error, not scientific analysis. The dirt on the Mganga's hands and the filth of the bandage are simply irrelevant to the transaction. The battle is a spiritual one. To clean the wound with simple water would be to do nothing, to leave it vulnerable to the invading spirit. The healer's concoctions are his weapons. You are paying for his power to overcome the power of the injury. It is a terrifying gamble. But in a world with no other options, it's the only one you have. For days, you and Amina watched Jume's leg with breathless anxiety. The area around the bandage became hot, red, and swollen. He developed a fever. The Mganga's cure seemed to be doing more harm than the original cut. You feared the worst, that the wound would putrefy, that you would lose him. Amina sat with him day and night, cooling his head with damp cloths, whispering prayers. She fought her own battle, using her own form of healing love, and the clean water she meticulously filtered, a quiet rebellion against the healer's methods. Then, slowly, miraculously, the fever broke. The swelling went down. When you finally dared to unwrap the filthy bandage, the wound was still angry and inflamed, but it was closed. The thick, ugly scar was already forming. Juma survived. Was it because of the Mganga's poultice, or in spite of it? You will never know. Perhaps one of the herbs in that foul paste was genuinely effective. Perhaps your son's own youthful strength was enough to fight off the dual infections from the coral and the cure. Or perhaps your wife's constant, gentle care made the difference. All you know is that the system is a roll of the dice. The healer's art is a blend of folk wisdom, dangerous superstition, and pure chance. You look at the scar on Juma's leg now, a silvery, puckered line against his dark skin. It's a permanent reminder of his brush with the city's dangers, and the even greater dangers of its cures. It is the price of his education in survival. And it makes you look out towards the sea, towards the horizon where the great does sail, vessels that represent a world of greater knowledge and different risks, a world that both gives and takes away everything you have. Your thoughts drift from the city's immediate dangers to the vast, blue expanse that defines its existence, the Indian Ocean. From the doorway of your home, you can't see the water itself, blocked as you are by the maze of buildings, but you can feel its presence. You can smell the faint, salty tang on the breeze, a clean scent that cuts through the chalky dust, and you can hear its distant, rhythmic sigh, the eternal pulse of waves against the reef. You walk a short distance to the end of your alley, to a place where a gap in the buildings allows for a view of the harbour. The glamorous illusion of the sea is one of boundless opportunity and romantic adventure. This is the vision that powers your city, the myth that draws merchants from across the known world. You see the great tows, their elegant lateen, sails like white wings against the turquoise water. They are magnificent vessels, masterpieces of shipbuilding, arriving from Arabia laden with dates and incense, from Persia with carpets and ceramics, from India with spices and cloth. They promise wealth, connection to the wider world, and the thrill of the exotic. The sea is a highway of prosperity, a beautiful, sun-dappled canvas on which the dreams of merchants and sailors are painted. It is the source of all your city's good fortune. You stand there, watching a doe navigate the tricky channel through the reef, and the shocking reality, a truth known to every family in this city, tempers the beauty of the scene. The sea is not a benevolent giver. It is a fickle, violent, and hungry god. For every doe that makes it to port, laden with treasure, there is another that lies shattered on a distant reef, its crew and cargo lost to the depths. Every family has a story, a brother, an uncle, a cousin who sailed out on the monsoon winds and never returned. The beautiful highway is also a graveyard. The very winds that fill the sails of a dhow bound for India can, without warning, turn into a monstrous cyclone that splinters masts and swallows ships whole. Furthermore, the wealth the sea brings is a poisoned chalice. The trade creates a vast, and often brutal, disparity between the rich and the poor. The merchant who owns the cargo on that dhow might make a fortune that could last generations. The sailors who risk their lives to get it here who face the storms and the pirates, will earn a pittance, barely enough to feed their families until the next voyage. You, the artisan, benefit from the merchant's desire for a fancy door, but you are subject to his whims. If his ship is lost, your commission is cancelled, and the half-finished lintel in your workshop becomes worthless firewood. Your city's prosperity is balanced on the knife edge of a safe return. The sea gives, but the sea takes away, and its whims govern your life even though you may never set foot on a deck yourself. And then, there's the coral. The very substance of your city is a gift from the sea, but it is a gift with sharp edges. Remember the reef that protects the harbour. It is both a shield and a sword. It breaks the power of the ocean waves, creating the calm lagoon that makes the port possible. But it is also a maze of jagged, submerged coral heads that can rip the hull out of a ship guided by an inattentive or unlucky captain. The sea provides the building blocks of your civilization, and then it does its best to destroy the vessels that allow that civilization to flourish. So why base your entire existence on such a treacherous and unpredictable element? The why is simple. There is no other choice. This coast has no great fertile plains for agriculture, no rich mines of gold or iron. The sea is all there is. It is the only resource, the only path to a life beyond bare subsistence. To turn your back on the sea would be to accept poverty and isolation. The people of this coast have embraced the gamble. They have become the world's finest sailors, navigators, and shipwrights out of sheer necessity. They have learned to read the winds, the stars, and the subtle changes in water color that signal a hidden reef. They have developed a complex culture of faith, superstition, and maritime law to mitigate the risks. They pray to God for safe passage, but they also paint protective eyes on the prows of their ships. They build their dows with flexible planks sewn together with coconut fibre, creating a vessel that can bend and flex on a reef where a rigid, nailed European ship would shatter. They have not conquered the sea, they have learned to dance with it, a beautiful and often fatal dance. You watch as the dhow finally clears the reef and glides into the calm waters of the harbour, its sails being lowered in a flurry of expert activity. A small crowd is gathering at the waterfront to greet it, a mix of expectant merchants, hopeful labourers looking for work unloading the cargo, and women searching for the face of a returning husband or son. There is a palpable sense of relief and excitement in the air. This time, the sea has given. This time, the gamble has paid off. The arrival of the ship means fresh goods in the market, money changing hands, work for men like you. But the deep, foundational anxiety never truly goes away. As the sun begins its slow descent towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, you know that the relief is only temporary. The same dhow will be reloaded and will sail out again on the next tide, carrying the city's hopes and its sons back into the beautiful, terrifying arms of the ocean. The day is ending, and soon it will be time to retreat back into the coral walls of your home, walls that trap the day's heat and smoke in a suffocating evening embrace. The sky begins to blush with the soft colours of sunset, a spectacle of orange, pink, and purple that paints the undersides of the clouds. It's a beautiful, fleeting moment of peace. The call to evening prayer echoes through the alleys, a sound that signals the winding down of the day's labour. You make your way back from the harbour overlook, your steps turning automatically towards home. The air is beginning to cool, but the coral walls of the buildings around you are now radiating the heat they have absorbed all day, creating a strange, oven-like microclimate in the narrow streets. The glamorous illusion of a Swahili evening is one of cosy, domestic bliss. One imagines a family gathered together in a soft, lantern-lit room, the father sharing stories, the mother serving a delicious, fragrant meal. The scent of coconut and spices fills the air. Outside, the world is quiet, save for the chirping of crickets and the distant murmur of the sea. The thick stone walls of the home are seen as a protective embrace, a shield that shuts out the world, creating a secure and comfortable sanctuary for the family within. It's a picture of perfect, peaceful closure to the day. You push open your door and step inside, and the shocking reality immediately assaults your senses. The thick coral walls, which were a blessing against the midday sun, have now become a curse. They have been baking all day, and now they are releasing that stored thermal energy into the small, enclosed space of your home. Instead of a cool sanctuary, the room is hot, stuffy, and almost airless. The single doorway and the small, high-set window openings do little to encourage circulation. The air is thick, not just with heat, but with a dense cocktail of smells. The lingering chalky scent of coral dust is now mixed with the oily smoke from the small lamp Amina has lit, and the pungent, greasy smoke from the charcoal brazier where she is cooking the evening meal. You see her kneeling by the fire, her silhouette shimmering in the heat haze rising from the coals. She is grilling small fish over the brazier, and while the smell of the cooking fish is appetizing, the smoke it produces is thick and acrid. With no chimney and poor ventilation, the smoke has nowhere to go. It fills the room, hanging in a visible, blue-grey layer in the upper air, before slowly settling on every surface. It stings your eyes and catches in the back of your throat. You look around the room. The beautiful illusion of soft lantern light is replaced by the reality of a single, sputtering oil lamp that casts long, dancing shadows, making the small space feel even more claustrophobic. The smoke and the heat combine to create a suffocating, oppressive atmosphere. This is not a gentle embrace. It's a chokehold. So why live like this? Why endure such an uncomfortable, unhealthy indoor environment every single evening? The why is a complex knot of security, tradition, and architectural limitations. The small windows and single, heavy door are not a design flaw, they are a feature. In a coastal city, vulnerable to raids, and in a society where family privacy is paramount, a house is a fortress first and a comfortable dwelling second. The small, high windows are difficult to climb through, protecting the family from intruders and ensuring the modesty of the women within. The thick walls provide a defense against the sun, and their heat retention is simply the other side of that coin. As for the smoke, the concept of indoor air quality is non-existent. A smoky room is simply the sign of a hot meal being cooked, a sign of life and provision. The stinging eyes and the persistent cough are just part of the fabric of daily existence, so commonplace they are not even remarked upon. People have lived this way for generations. To suggest a different way would be to question tradition itself. The design of the house, a design that traps the smoke and heat, is the same design that keeps the family safe. Comfort is sacrificed for security. Your children are huddled in a corner, away from the worst of the smoke, playing a quiet game with shells. They are used to it, their eyes less sensitive to the sting than yours are after a day spent in the relatively open air of your workshop. You go to the water pot and take a long drink of the lukewarm, slightly gritty water. It does little to quench your thirst or cool you down. Amina finally lifts the last of the grilled fish from the fire, placing them on a wooden platter next to a mound of leftover UG from the morning, now thick and cold. This is the evening meal. She has done her best, but the resources are limited. The fish are small, and the UG is a stolid, filling necessity. She glances at you, a silent question in her eyes. You know what she is asking. Do you have new work? Did the merchant pay? Her entire world, the food she can provide, the security of her home, depends on the answer. You nod, patting the reassuring lump in your sash where the sharpening stone and a few remaining shells are tucked. A small measure of relief softens her features. For tonight, at least, there is enough. You all gather on the mats, the heat pressing in, the smoke swirling around your heads, to share the simple, smoky meal. As you eat, you can't help but think of the wealthy merchant whose door you are carving. His evening will be very different, his finery a stark contrast to your own simple kikoi, but you know the hidden, gritty truth that underpins his luxurious life. As you chew the small, bony fish, its smoky flavour mingling with the blandness of the cold millet porridge, your mind drifts to the man who commissioned the lintel currently sitting in your workshop, a pearl merchant named User. He is one of the city's wealthiest men, a figure of great influence and ostentation. Just yesterday, you saw him walking through the market, and the sight was one of almost theatrical splendour. The glamorous illusion he presents is one of effortless elegance and immense, pure wealth. He was dressed in a flowing robe, a djellaba of deep blue silk that seemed to shimmer and change colour in the sunlight. On his head was a turban wrapped with impeccable precision, and on his finger was a ring with a gold setting so large it seemed to weigh down his hand. His feet were shod in fine leather sandals, a true luxury in a city where most go barefoot or wear simple wooden clogs. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace, surrounded by an aura of importance, nodding occasionally to those who greeted him. He is the living embodiment of the city's commercial success, a man whose finery speaks of a life untouched by the dirt, sweat, and struggle of common existence. His wealth appears as clean and luminous as the pearls he trades. But you, as the man carving his doorway, know the shocking, gritty reality that underpins this polished facade. You know the true price of that silk robe. Its journey began not in a perfumed bazaar, but likely on the back of a terrified, overloaded camel, trekking for weeks across a harsh desert to a distant port. From there, it was crammed into the dark, rat-infested hold of a dough, smelling of bilge water and salted fish, for a month-long sea voyage. By the time the bolt of silk reached this city, it was not pristine. It was likely damp, smelling faintly of mildew, and creased from its long confinement. The fine leather of his sandals comes from a cow whose carcass you probably smelled rotting in the sun before the tanner got to it, a man whose hands are permanently stained and whose work involves toxic, foul-smelling chemicals, and the gold for his re. It was mined by a man enduring brutal conditions hundreds of miles inland, a man who will never see the ocean, let alone own a single pearl. Yusuf's glamour is not an innate quality, it is a meticulously constructed shield, and the primary material used to build it is the labor of hundreds of people like you. And even he cannot escape the city's fundamental truth. Remember the coral dust? As Yusuf walked, the fine hem of his magnificent silk robe dragged ever so slightly on the ground. You saw it. The deep blue fabric was collecting a faint, grey-white border of dust. He was, quite literally, sweeping the street with his wealth. The fine weave of the silk, so beautiful to the eye, is also perfectly designed to trap the abrasive particles of coral and dirt. After just one walk through the city, that priceless garment would need to be carefully cleaned, a task for a servant who will spend hours trying to beat the grit out of it, a process that slowly but surely weakens the delicate fibres. His luxury is fragile, under constant assault from the very ground he walks on. So why this elaborate, and ultimately vulnerable, display? The why is a critical lesson in the language of power and status in a merchant society. Wealth that is not seen does not exist. A merchant's reputation, his creditworthiness, his ability to secure new deals, is directly tied to his public presentation. The silk robe is not just clothing, it is a walking advertisement. It says, "My last venture was successful. I am a man you can trust with your investment. I am a serious player." To appear in a simple cotton kikoi, even if it were more practical, would be to signal weakness, to suggest his fortunes were in decline. It would be commercial suicide. The constant battle to keep his finery clean, the expense of replacing garments ruined by the city's grit, is simply a cost of doing business. It is the maintenance fee on his own reputation. His conspicuous consumption is a calculated performance, a necessary piece of theatre in the competitive drama of the Soko. You've looked down at your own hands. They are calloused and stained with wood resin. There is dirt under your fingernails that no amount of scrubbing seems to remove. Your hands are a map of your labour. Yusuf's hands, you noted, were soft and pale, the nails immaculately clean. But his softness is paid for by your calluses. His clean nails are paid for by the dirt under yours. The entire economic structure of the city is a transfer of grit. The labourer in the coral quarry, the sailor on the dough, the carver in his workshop, you all absorb the physical grit of the world so that men like Yusuf can present a facade of polished purity. He doesn't escape the dust. He just outsources it. He pays you to take it on for him. Your meal is finished. The small fish are gone, and the heavy porridge sits in your stomach. The day is well and truly over. Soon, the entire city will engage in a collective act of forgetting, a festival of light and sound designed to mask the deep, underlying strains of this life. As darkness fully envelops the city, a new energy begins to stir. The oppressive heat of the day finally starts to dissipate, and a gentle breeze, smelling of salt and night-blooming flowers, finds its way through the alleys. Tonight is not just any night. It is the beginning of a 3-day festival celebrating the wedding of the Sultan's eldest daughter. From your doorway, you can already hear the distant, rhythmic thumping of drums and the high, ululating cries of women. The city is preparing to transform itself. The glamorous illusion of a Swahili festival is one of pure, unadulterated joy and communal harmony. It's a vision of a city united in celebration, a vibrant tablio of kalawa, music and light. Storytellers describe streets hung with lanterns, the air thick with the delicious smells of roasting meat and sweet pastries prepared in abundance for all. They paint a picture of people dancing in the squares, their faces alight with happiness, dressed in their finest, most colourful clothes. The rich and the poor, the artisan and the merchant, all joined together as one, their worries forgotten in a shared explosion of cultural pride and festivity. It's a beautiful fantasy of a society in perfect, joyful accord. You gather your small family, and you two step out into the night to join the celebration. As you merge into the growing throng of people moving towards the main square, the shocking reality behind the festive mask becomes apparent. The joy is real, but it is a thin, bright veneer over a bedrock of deep, collective anxiety. The drums are loud, yes, but they seem less a sound of pure celebration and more a desperate attempt to drown out the city's ever-present worries. You see the flashes of genuine happiness on people's faces, but you also see the strain in their eyes. The abundance is a carefully managed illusion. You pass a public fountain where men are roasting a goat on a spit. The smell is indeed magnificent. But you know this is one of only a handful of animals that will be cooked for a city of thousands. The vast majority of people, your family included, will eat no better tonight than they do any other night. The festival is not a suspension of the city's harsh economic realities, but a temporary distraction from them. The lanterns, lighting the main square, are beautiful, but they also cast deep shadows where beggars, hoping for a dropped morsel, huddle out of sight. The vibrant colours of people's clothing are dazzling, but you notice the frayed cuffs on a man's tunic, the carefully patched tear in a woman's kanga. Everyone is wearing their absolute best, but for many, their best is still a testament to their struggle. The festival is not an escape from poverty, it's a performance of prosperity, and the strain of that performance is visible everywhere. And then there's the dust. The thousands of dancing and shuffling feet are kicking up the day's accumulation of coral grit into a thick, choking haze. The lantern light catches it, creating a shimmering, almost magical fog, but you know you are breathing in a concentrated dose of the city's essence. You find yourself coughing, and you hear the coughs of others all around you, a percussive accompaniment to the drumming. The festival, the moment of greatest communal life, is also the moment of greatest communal inhalation of the city's slow poison. So why engage in this frantic, strained, and ultimately unhealthy celebration? The why is a crucial lesson in social cohesion and psychological survival. The festival is a necessary pressure valve. Life in the city is hard, fraught with uncertainty, the risk of a failed harvest, a lost ship, a sudden illness. The constant, low-level anxiety needs an outlet. The noise, the music, the dancing, it's a collective catharsis, a way for the community to burn off its fear and frustration in a controlled, sanctioned way. It reaffirms social bonds. Dancing next to your neighbour, sharing a brief smile, reminds you that you are not alone in your struggles. Furthermore, the festival is a powerful statement of identity and resilience. It tells the outside world, and more importantly, it tells itself, despite the hardships, despite the dust, despite the fear, we are still here. We are strong. We can still create beauty and joy. Performance of abundance and unity is not a lie, it's an act of faith, a manifestation of the hope that things will get better. It is a vital psychological tool for survival. You find a spot on the edge of the main square with Amina and the children. Huma's eyes are wide with excitement at the sight of fire dancers, their torches painting swirling patterns in the dusty air. Aisha claps her hands in time with the drums, a look of pure delight on her face. In this moment, for them, the illusion is real. And seeing their joy, you feel a measure of it yourself. You can, for a short while, forget the half-finished lintel, the cost of fish, the grit in your food. You can let the rhythm of the drums seep into your bones and allow yourself to be part of this loud, dusty, and desperate celebration of life. But as the night wears on, you know that the energy will fade, the crowds will thin, and people will retreat back to their homes, leaving the square empty save for the litter and the ghosts that are said to whisper in the city's ancient coral walls. The festival's energy eventually wanes. The drums fall silent one by one, and the fire dancers extinguish their torches, leaving the square lit only by a few remaining lanterns and the high, distant moon. The crowds melt away, a slow river of people flowing back into the dark capillaries of the city's alleys. You guide your family home, the children now sleepy and quiet, their brief, feverish excitement replaced by a deep weariness. The walk back is a different journey. The streets are now eerily silent, filled with long, distorted shadows and the soft, scuttling sounds of night creatures. The glamorous illusion of the Swahili night is one of deep, tropical peace. Once the joyous celebrations are over, one imagines the city falling into a profound and restful slumber. The sea breeze whispers through silent courtyards, the moon casts a silvery, romantic glow on the whitewashed walls, and the only sound is the gentle chirping of shekos. It's a vision of a city at rest, secure in its faith and its fortifications, a place where its inhabitants enjoy a well-earned, untroubled sleep, their dreams as sweet as the jasmine that scents the air. You secure the heavy wooden bar across your door, an act of finality that shuts out the world. You coax the sleepy children onto their mats. The shocking reality, however, is that the night brings not peace, but a different kind of anxiety. The physical threats of the day: a collapsing wall, a charging donkey, a cut from a piece of coral, are replaced by the psychological and supernatural threats of the night. The silence is not peaceful, it is heavy. It is a canvas against which every small, unidentifiable sound is magnified. A loose shutter rattling in the wind becomes the scratching of a spirit at the window. The sigh of the wind through a crack in the wall becomes a mournful whisper. The very walls of your house, your fortress against the day, now feel different. During this day, they are just coral stone. But at night, in the deep darkness, they come alive with stories and superstitions. You remember the tales the old women tell, the whispers of the jinn. They are spirits, neither good nor evil, but mischievous and powerful, born of smokeless fire. They are said to live in liminal spaces, in thresholds, in abandoned wells, and most of all, in the porous, hollow-filled blocks of old coral. Your house, built from the skeletons of 1,000,000 dead creatures, is not just a shelter, it is a crowded apartment building for unseen entities. The faint, musty smell of the coral dust now seems like the breath of something ancient and otherworldly. Every creak of the house settling is a footstep in the room next to you. So why this deep-seated fear? Why populate the darkness with such terrifying possibilities? The why is a way of explaining the unexplainable, of giving form to the formless anxieties of life. In a world without scientific explanations for many of life's misfortunes, the jinn provide a narrative. Did a child fall suddenly ill with a fever? The jinn must have touched him. Did a pot of milk spoil for no reason? The jinn must have passed by. They are a convenient scapegoat for the random cruelties of fate. This belief system is also a powerful tool for social control. Children are warned not to stay out after dark, not because of human dangers, but because the jinn are most active at night. People are encouraged to be pious, to recite verses from the Quran, as this is believed to offer protection from the spirits. The fear of what lurks in the darkness reinforces the moral and religious order of the day. The coral walls, so solid and reassuring in the sunlight, become a source of fear at night, reminding you of your vulnerability and your need for faith to protect you from the unseen world. You lie down on your mat next to Amina. She is already still, her breathing deep and even, but you can tell from a certain tension in her body that she is not truly asleep, just listening. You listen, too. You can hear the faint, high-pitched whine of a mosquito. A bite from this tiny creature could bring the shaking fever, a sickness often attributed to the malevolent breath of a spirit. You hear a gecko clucking on the wall, a reassuring sound, as they are said to be enemies of the jinn. Your mind, tired from the day, starts to play tricks. Was that the wind, or a voice? Is that a shadow in the corner, or just a trick of the dying lamplight? You are a practical man, a craftsman who deals in solid wood and sharp tools, but the beliefs of a lifetime are not so easily dismissed in the deep, profound darkness. The city may be fortified against pirates and raiders, but its walls are porous to fear. The true siege is not from the sea, but from within. And you know, as you try to force your mind to be still, that your sleep, when it finally comes, will not be a true escape. It will be on a bed that offers one final, inescapable reminder of the world you inhabit. The last of the oil in the lamp finally sputters out, plunging the room into an even deeper blackness, broken only by the faintest sliver of moonlight filtering through a crack. The sounds from outside have faded into a low, almost inaudible hum. This is the hour of deepest quiet, the moment you are most alone with your thoughts, your family, and the substance of your world. You shift on your sleeping mat, trying to find a position of comfort, a position of rest. The glamorous illusion of sleep in this historical setting is one of rustic, profound peace. We imagine a body, tired from a day of honest labour, sinking into a deep and dreamless slumber on a simple but comfortable bed. The night air is cool and fresh, The silence is absolute, and sleep is a pure, restorative balm that washes away the day's fatigue, preparing the sleeper for a new dawn. It is the sleep of the righteous, untroubled and complete, a perfect closing of the circle of a simple, well-lived day. But as you turn onto your side, a familiar sensation grinds that illusion into dust. The shocking reality is that there is no escape. The woven palm leaf mat you lie on is, by now, thoroughly impregnated with the day's pervasive grit. It's not just the dust that has settled from the air. It's the dust you brought in on your feet, on your clothes. It's the dust Amina stirred up with her broom, the dust the children carried in from their play. The mat has a texture all its own. It is mostly smooth, woven with skill, but it is also subtly abrasive. As you move, you can feel the fine, sandy particles shifting beneath you. You can hear it, a soft, scratching sound, as your body presses the grit into the fibres of the mat. You lift your head and try to brush a small area clean with your hand, a futile, sleepy gesture. The dust just moves around. You lay your head back down, and the side of your face rests on this fine layer of grit. It's not painful, not a sharp discomfort. It is something far more insidious, a constant, low-level sensory reminder of your world. It's the same texture you felt on your tongue when you woke up, the same grit you washed with at the mosque, the same powder that coated the merchant's silk. It has followed you through every moment of your day, and now, it shares your bed. Sleep is not a clean slate. It is not an escape. It is simply a continuation of your life in the dust, experienced in a state of semi-consciousness. And why is this the final, inescapable reality of your day? The why is the ultimate summary of your existence. You live in a coral city. Your status, your safety, your very identity is tied to these stone walls. The dust is the tax you pay for this privilege. It is the byproduct of your civilization's greatest achievement. To want to sleep free of grit would be to want a life outside the city walls, a life of lesser status, a life of different, perhaps greater, hardships. The wealthy merchant, Yusuf, may sleep on a softer mattress stuffed with cotton or feathers, but his mattress, too, is full of the same dust. He may have servants who beat it daily, but they can never get it all out. The Sultan, in his grand palace, breathes the same dusty air as he sleeps. The grit is the great equalizer, the fundamental condition of life in this place. It is the price of ambition, the cost of building a permanent paradise out of an impermanent material. Your acceptance of it, your ability to find rest amidst its constant presence, is not a sign of defeat. It is the ultimate sign of your resilience. You have learned to sleep in the very substance that is slowly wearing you away. Your body is heavy with fatigue. The physical labours of the day, the carving, the walking, the standing have earned you this rest. Your mind, weary from the anxieties of the market, the festival and the encroaching darkness, craves the oblivion of sleep. You close your eyes. You consciously ignore the faint grittiness against your cheek. You regulate your breathing, falling into the slow, steady rhythm of your wife and children sleeping beside you. You are a family, a tiny island of warmth and life, breathing in unison in the heart of your dusty, beautiful, dangerous home. The dust is not an enemy to be fought in this moment. It is simply a fact, like the rising of the sun and the turning of the tides. You are a man of coral, and this is your bed. As you finally begin to drift away, the last conscious sensation is that familiar, faint, chalky taste on your tongue, a gritty lullaby welcoming you to your dreams. And so, my dear friend, your long day comes to its close, a full circle from the taste of dust at dawn to the feel of it at dusk. The artisan and his family are finally at rest, their individual struggles and anxieties momentarily quieted, subsumed into the collective, breathing silence of the city. The great does rock gently in the harbour, their cargoes secure for the night. The market square is empty, swept clean by the night wind, ready for the chaos of a new day. And the palace, for all its grandeur, is just another house of stone, filled with sleeping people who will wake to the same gritty reality. The moonlight softens the hard edges of the world, making the coral walls seem less like a source of dust and more like the ancient, sleeping bones of the earth itself, cradling the city in a quiet, stony embrace. All is still, for now, in this small corner of the 15th century world as the cycle of life, labour and inescapable dust prepares to begin all over again with the coming of the light. End of script. Sweet dreams.